Hey, so if you've tried to lose fat before, but you just can't stay consistent, even though you know you need to eat in a calorie deficit, you know you need to go to the gym, this is the real reason why. So you're not lazy, you're not bad at dieting, you're just making it way harder for yourself than it needs to be. See, this video will probably change the way you see fat loss and dieting forever, because it isn't another meal plan or a motivation hack, it's a completely different way of setting things up than it's worked for me. In this video, I'll show you how to make the habits that get you lean actually feel rewarding, so fat loss stops feeling like forced or an uphill battle and you actually start craving the good habits and getting in shape. Welcome people. This is the fat loss guide that you have been asking for. So this is using my inside out method. And the way that works is, right, let's make me a bit smaller, otherwise I'm too big. Rewire your brain to actually crave the habits that lead to fat loss. So you might have tried before and you just can't stay consistent. And that's fine, because we have a method that takes a slightly different approach and uses neuroscience, dopamine, identity, and other methods to help you get in shape and to make it feel like less of an uphill battle. See, the reason that most cuts fail, you know your calories, you know your training, you're motivated in the morning, but it all falls apart at night. You're relying on willpower, and that makes it hard. So you end up doom scrolling, you're eating junk food, you're having your vices, like drinking, smoking, starting again every weekend, like weekend binges. And I understand, and it's at a point where it's not a knowledge problem, it's a regulation and consistency problem. If it was a knowledge problem, I'm sure you'd be in shape by now, but you could just look up on ChatGPT, give me a training plan, give me a nutrition plan, and you know that it's because of you've got to be in a deficit, but it's, can I actually stick to that deficit, which is the hard bit, and I get it. I fully get it. I get it. I was there. I was literally there. The loop that I was stuck in, tried the basic cutting advice, and it's literally just put yourself in a deficit. Eat this amount of protein, do this. I tried that, and obviously I'd be relying purely on willpower and discipline. I'd be white knuckling my way through, but then the evening cravings would come. They would come, and then because I was relying on willpower, and you can only have such amount of willpower, especially when you're overweight and you cheat, and I would cheat, and then you have that overwhelming feel of guilt afterwards. Feel horrible about yourself, and you're like, no, why did I do that? And then I would ruminate and think like, oh, am I done? And then I'd end up resetting my mindset. I'd go to the point where, like, right, I'm locking back in. And then I'd do the whole cycle, and I'd try basic cutting advice, and I'd try and stay in a deficit. And because I was relying on willpower this whole time, I just kept finding it so hard to stay locked in. But what really switched for me, it wasn't trying to fix my calories. It wasn't trying to get more discipline. It was fixing my dopamine, my lifestyle, and my identity. That was what the problem was. Fat loss, it didn't click until I understood why I had cravings. I adjusted my lifestyle, and it made cutting 10 times easier. It made my cravings predictable. My consistency became easiser. I had to put less effort in, and I had more control over it. That is what led me through much trial and error to devising my inside out cut method. So how it works, I think I'm a bit big there. Let me make myself a little bit smaller. You don't need to see my face so much, but you fix dopamine first, then you improve your food quality, then you align your identity, and then you apply the deficit. See, deficit, it comes last. Because most people are just like, yeah, just put in a deficit, mate, and then you'll lose weight. That's what most coaches are going to tell you, and it's like, if it was that easy, everyone would be shredded. It's the consistency, and the way to do that, fix your dopamine, improve the food quality, identity alignment. So that ends up smarter fat loss fat loss, it doesn't feel like an uphill battle. Don't get me wrong, it's not effortless, but when you change these things, your brain actually starts to crave the fat loss habits, okay? It's like, if you're going to have to do all the habits to lose weight or lose fat anyway, why fight yourself when you can make consistency easier? You're going to have to do it anyway. Why not make it easier for yourself? All right? So that is the inside out method. And that is how I got from overweight here on the left to getting in incredible shape. And whilst it being rewarding and fun and enjoying the whole process, because I wasn't feeling like I was white knuckling it and having to put excess willpower in. Like, obviously, you're going to have to put willpower in using this method, but it's just going to make it that little bit more natural and intuitive and easier. All right? So we move on to phase 1, and that is fix your dopamine. The most important thing out of this whole system. Let me come over here and I can show you. How can I do that? Bosh. Right. Every cut that I failed, it failed at night. And that, I'm sure you have the exact same thing. And that is because when you're doing habits, let's say throughout the day, you're scrolling. And scrolling feels good in the moment. So it spikes your dopamine. But what happens after you scroll? You feel a crash and you go down. And then you're here. You're at a lower point than you were before because it's on a naturally large dopamine spike. And then what should you do? I watch Netflix. Okay. Then you have another spike. And you're trying to get back up to here, but it's so hard. And then you come down and then you're even lower than you were before. All right. And the reason now your brain is trying to get back up to this level all day because you've spiked your dopamine in the morning by scrolling on your phone in bed. You wake up straight away, you scroll your phone. Your brain's trying to get back up to this level of dopamine. That's why you feel the craving to eat junk food and scroll more and go on Netflix. And most of the time when people talk about dopamine, they're like, oh yeah, it means that you can focus more on your work if you fix it. You can do this and this. But when you start realizing that the reason that you, at the end of the day, want junk food, want hyper palatable, tasty food, not your chicken and rice, not your beef and rice, not your healthy stuff that you know you need to eat for your fat loss, it's because your brain is craving the dopamine from that junk food to try and get yourself back up to this level here. Because if you ate good food that you needed, it would only get you to here. And your brain is seeing this gap here. And it's like, well, how am I going to get to that gap there? By eating junk food, which will get it up to that level because it's super dopaminergic. That's why going on Uber Eats, going on Deliveroo is so exhilarating, and you're like so exciting, and you order it and you're waiting for the food to come and then you eat it. And that's this point. And that's you're going up, 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 up. But then as soon as afterwards, and you have that guilt afterwards because you've had that crash and you're down. But that's why every cut fails at night. But I'll go more into that a little bit later. But that is a rough explanation of the dopamine. My way of fixing it, which I found through much trial and error, and this is the way that I believe works very nicely for me, is my identify, remove, and replace method. So it starts off with identify. You identify your cheap dopamine. So you look at your day and go, right, what is my cheap dopamine? By cheap dopamine, what I mean is something that gives you instant gratification without having to put any effort in to start with. All right. So that's like scrolling when you're bored. You don't have to put any effort into that. You scroll and it feels good in the moment and it's super dopaminergic, right? Eating when you're not hungry just because you want the dopamine from it. Watching porn. That is the most dopaminergic thing that you can do in your day. All right? So keep that. No, don't identify that, sorry. Vices like smoking weed, like drinking, like junk food, like these things that give you gratification, that make you feel good in the moment, but then generally make you feel bad or a crash afterwards. All right? So what you do then is you've identified these things, and then you remove them. Okay? So you remove the biggest leaks, like no scrolling. So that's ideally no scrolling at all. But I can understand that that's quite a big thing. So to start with, you can start putting little bits in, like no scrolling for the first 2 hours of the day. And then that can help you, because instead of coming up here and spiking your dopamine from the beginning of the day, so then you're always trying to get up, you haven't spiked it. And then at lunch you've won because instead of your dopamine being, let's just get rid of that. Instead of your dopamine being like all the way up here and then coming down here, and then now you're trying to eat the junk food to get back up to this level. Instead of that, what you've done is you've started your day by not scrolling, so you're at your baseline, okay? So this is your baseline for the day here, because you haven't spiked it yet. And then when your brain will feel, when you're thinking at lunch, right, do I eat a pizza or do I eat steak and eggs, beef and rice, chicken and rice? That is going to be what you need to eat for your fat loss, but it's not what's going to feel good in the moment. And because you haven't, in theory, because you haven't spiked your dopamine yet, your brain is going to feel more pulled to do the habit that only does this. Okay? And the good thing about the good dopamine is it doesn't have a crash. It just gets back down to the normal level it was before. And see that curve compared to an unnatural, cheap dopamine curve. It's not even a curve. It's a spike and then a down, and then you end up lower than you were before. Okay? Right. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So once you've identified, you're in the process of removing, you stop partying, stop weed, stop gambling. All of these things are dopamine leaks. Anything that feels good in the moment and bad afterwards, or just good in the moment without putting any effort in, remove it, or at least limit it. Okay? So this is the method that I find works the best. I'm going to go into a slightly more very, very beginner-friendly, easy method a little bit later in this dopamine section if you find that this is a bit too intense. But I know that this method for me is what has worked so well, because you've removed these dopamine leaks, these spikes of dopamine that lead to cravings because you're trying to get back up to that level. And then you replace. Identify, remove, replace. And you replace with what I like to call wholesome dopamine. Good dopamine that is good for you. Like cold exposure, cold showers, maybe even an ice bath if you get into the, if you really get into the cold showers, you can buy an ice bath. But cold showers, meditation, journaling, walks, getting your steps in, which is great for your fat loss journey. Doing cardio, reading audiobooks, going to the gym, which is also essential. Eating properly and working towards your goals. See, that's the thing. Working towards any goal, especially a fat loss goal, gives you dopamine. And it gives you that kind of dopamine that we were talking about here. All right? Where's the pen? There it is. Right. Well, like these dopamines that you're replacing it with, yes, they don't go as high upwards. God, what is that arrow? It doesn't go as high upwards, but it goes longer that way, and it doesn't give you a crash. Hopefully I've made this visually able to understand, but now, because we've done a cold shower and that raises your dopamine, and then it keeps your dopamine high like that, okay? And then we've worked towards our goals. So then even from here, we could be going up even more like this. All right, so we just don't think about that bit. and you see how this is a much, much healthier curve. Because when you've cut out these unnaturally large spikes, like go all the way up here and then bring you down, you then aren't trying to get back to this level because your brain doesn't know that level because your tolerance has come down to this level here, all right? So by cutting out the bad habits, you've lowered your tolerance so that these good, wholesome habits, the habits that get you towards your fat loss goals, eating properly, going to the gym, working towards your goals, and doing your steps, doing your cardio, they still give you dopamine, but they're not going to ever be able to compete with this spike that you get from scrolling, from corn, from junk food. How are they ever going to compete? How's your brain ever going to want to do these habits when you're getting it to compete with things up here? So it's not just all about a calorie deficit. Yes, if it was all about a calorie deficit, everyone would be shredded and be like, oh, it's easy. It's not easy because it's the consistency. And that's why you're finding it difficult to stay consistent, to bring yourself to do these habits. You're like, oh, I really just can't be bothered. Yeah, mate, because you've sat scrolling for 2 hours and then you're going to try and bring yourself to go to the gym or go and do cardio. How is that going to ever compete with this massive spike when you've, especially that massive spike, and it's not even trying to go from here up to the spike. It's trying to go from this new lower level because you've crashed your dopamine to the spike. And you can only get there by doing bad habits. And even then, those bad habits won't get you up to the top. They'll get you almost there. So you keep doing more and more bad habits to try and get to that level, but I can't get there because you have to do more and more dopaminergic things. That's why scrolling on your phone as soon as you wake up will lead to fat loss, the habits for fat loss becoming so difficult, okay? Hopefully, I've said that in a way that you can understand, all right? All right, let's move on, okay? So it's, if you just notice all of these activities here, they all lead to self-improvement. What this does is it trains your brain to enjoy and rewards you for doing the good habits required for fat loss. You're going to have to do these habits anyway if you want to lose weight. Why not make it easy for yourself by doing this and fixing your dopamine? Yeah? So, I've covered it briefly, but baseline dopamine. Your dopamine baseline determines your motivation. And that constant spike, as I said earlier, it goes up, it lowers your baseline because you come down below where you were before because of the spike and crash. And a low baseline means everything feels hard. Not just the habits that to do with your fat loss, not just eating right, going to the gym, anything that isn't scrolling and getting loads of dopamine, eating bad, like, oh, I've got to go to the shops now. Oh, it's takes so much effort. It feels like that, not because you're depressed, not because you're tired, not because you can't be bothered and you lack discipline, because your dopamine baseline is so low. And I see so many people, they don't even realize that that's why they're lethargic. That's why they can't be bothered to do good habits, because they've been done by the Western culture and the capitalist culture, where in the past, dopamine was released in the brain because it helped you survive. If you went and killed a boar for the tribe, if you went and reproduced, which is good for back in the day for keeping you alive and doing what would you call it? Reproducing would be like fulfilling your natural yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. I think I've lost the words there, but you know what I mean. But now the big brother, the Western world, capitalism has realized that if it utilizes dopamine and gives you so much dopamine, it makes you addicted to their social media, to their food, to their product. So people go around life and they don't even realize that's why I can't stop scrolling, and that's why I now can't be bothered to do good habits, even though I really want to do them. At 2 a.m. I said, oh my God, I'm gonna lose this fat. And the next day I've woken up and scrolled and I just can't bring myself to do it. That's because your baseline dopamine is so low from doing these bad habits and constantly crashing it. See, with the inside out method, the goal isn't to eliminate dopamine. Don't see dopamine as the bad guy, all right? It's to raise your baseline so the normal habits feel rewarding again, and it's to raise your baseline and lower your tolerance so you have a smaller gap between your baseline and what feels good, to fit in the good habits which give you less dopamine. But you can make eating right, going to the gym, doing good habits feel as rewarding and as good as scrolling. Like, you know, when you scroll or you open up corn and you're like, oh my God, and it feels so good. That's because you're super dopaminergic. But you can make fat loss feel as good as scrolling Instagram reels. Boom! Because you've lowered your baseline dopamine. No, or you've raised your baseline dopamine. Sorry, my bad. See, well, most people cheat in the evening, all right? I mentioned it briefly earlier, but Here's it in detail, because decision fatigue builds all day. You're making decisions. Do I eat this? Do I go and do this? You're at work and I've got to make this decision and fire this person and do this and have this meeting. And then in the downtimes, you're scrolling and you're eating bad food and you're eating processed food and you're doing these dopaminergic habits. Your dopamine is then depleted by all this bad stimulation. When in the moment you think, oh, it's fine, I'm just going to take 5 minutes to scroll on my lunch break. No, because your dopamine is depleted by that stimulation. All right. So it's gone up and you're like, oh, I'm relaxing because I'm up the top and I'm scrolling, and then spike, then crash. All right. So now you're below. Like, remember on the graph? So then at the end of the day, your baseline, it started here at the beginning of the day. It was all tickety boo, right? And because you've spiked it so much and spiked it so much and spiked it so, it's come down to here. And the only way that you can get back to baseline is by, and it comes to dinner time, all right? Or it comes to when you're hungry and all it is a dopamine craving. Your brain's like, fucking hell, well, I can't get up all the way to the top by eating chicken and rice. I've got to have a pizza to get my dopamine all the way up. And that craving then isn't because you're really hungry. That craving is because you want the dopamine response from the food to get back up to your baseline, because back up to your tolerance level. Sorry, not your baseline, because your baseline's down here. Back up to the level of what you had when you were scrolling, when you were watching Netflix, when you were doing these dopaminergic things. Your cravings aren't hunger. They are a dopamine response. Even if you take one thing away from this guide, just that one phrase, cravings aren't hunger, they're a dopamine response, especially when you're craving takeaways and junk food. It's so dopaminergic. Just having that realization will help you understand the cravings and realize, oh, I don't really, 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 really want a pizza. I just really want the dopamine, because your tolerance is so messed up and your baseline is so low. Most people, they don't fail the diets at lunch. They fail them at night when their dopamine is cooked. That's basically what I've just explained, okay? And what I see a lot of people do, I see it all the time, and it's such a massive thing these days, is dopamine stacking, which is bad. It's bad because you stack the multiple things at once. It multiplies the crash and the spike and then the crash. But that's why you do it, because you only see it as the spike. It's not you even consciously, it's subconsciously you wanting dopamine. So you'll be eating food, having your dinner, and you're like, I have to watch something on my phone. How many of you get some food up and you just couldn't even fathom the idea of sitting and enjoying and putting all your attention into just eating this food? You have to put something on TV, you have to put some YouTube on, you have to put some Netflix on, you have to find the perfect TV show, Netflix show before you can start eating. That's because you want multiple levels of dopamine, of stimulation. TV, oh my God, I need some snacks. When you're not actually hungry, you just want some snacks with the TV to up your dopamine. You might not realize this is why you're doing it, but once you realize that the reason your brain wants to do it is because it wants the dopamine and the dopamine stacking, this is when it all changes. I see scrolling while eating, yes, which is almost the same as, well, it is the same as phone and food, but Netflix and scrolling, I've been there, but looking back on it from being on the other side, I don't get it. It's like someone will you'll have a TV show up and you'll be happily watching it, and then you just feel the urge to suddenly check your phone. It's like I've written, notice next time when you feel the urge to check your phone, next time you're already watching TV. If you're not conscious about it, you'll blink and you'll be scrolling TikTok, scrolling Instagram Reels whilst you're watching a show, and you're like, whoa, what am I doing? It's not even a conscious choice at that point. It's because your brain feels like it needs that stacked multiplication of dopamine to get the spike it requires to get it up to that level that I was talking about, okay? Because you've spiked it all day, and by the end of the day, to get it back up there, it doesn't need just watching Netflix, just watching TV, just scrolling. No, it needs a multiplier of Netflix and a phone, eating and a phone, this and this to multiply to get it up there, because you've cooked your dopamine baseline and your tolerance so much, all right? So that is a general understanding of the dopamine. And if you want a slightly more very beginner friendly, just to try this out, but you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket to say, you're saying, what does this bald guy know about? What's this bald guy telling me to stop doing everything? Okay, I get it. I'm just a random guy on the internet. Fair enough. Here is a method where you can just try it out, but you can still do the habits which you do and you love to do, like the TikTok and the bad habits. But just so you can feel it, this is a method called dopamine loading. I mentioned this earlier in the dopamine section. But the idea is you keep your dopamine low early on during the day. So before you've done your hard habits, like going to the gym, eating your good food, journaling, meditating, all of these good things, cold shower. Before you've done that, you keep your dopamine low. So your baseline and your tolerance stays lower. So these good habits can still have the effect and feel rewarding. That's the idea, okay? And then after you've done all your good habits for the day, you've ticked off all your stuff on your to-do list, then you can reward yourself with dopamine. Then you could do the habits like Netflix, like scrolling, after you've done the hard efforts. You load your dopamine after effort, okay? So what this is, it's all about timing your dopamine. So a bad timing would be dopamine and then putting in effort. Because a dopamine spike and then putting effort is just going to make the effort afterwards feel way harder because you've spiked it up to here. Then how's that little bit of dopamine from the good habit going to do anything to you? So it's not going to be rewarding. But a good timing, however, would be doing the effort first, and then so you can spike your dopamine as much as you want afterwards. This is the general beginner-friendly method. If you don't want to just cut everything out, and if you're like half committed, sure. I really don't like half committing, but this is an entry level. Dopamine isn't the enemy. Bad timing is the enemy, like we've explained here. Like I will say, this is good to try it out, but if you get into it, you have to understand that your brain, this is good for timing, dopamine timing, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're still doing super dopaminergic things at the end of the day, your brain doesn't just forget that those dopaminergic things exist because you've gone to sleep and then it's the next day. Your brain's still going to find the good habits a little bit harder because it knows in the back of its head, well, I can get 20 times more dopamine if I just scroll on my phone, if I just eat bad food, if I just watch Netflix, if I just watch corn, if I do all these things. It knows, it doesn't just forget because you've gone to sleep. But dopamine timing is a definitely good beginner way to start feeling how much better you can feel when you sort out your dopamine. Okay, so hopefully now after the dopamine section, you've understood that dopamine can definitely help make your diet more consistent and help you stick to the good habits. And it can actually be to the point where your body will crave the good habits. Because just like your body wants to get back to the bad higher baseline, oh, bloody hell, that's a... Anyway, it was just like your body wants to get back up to here when you've got down to this lower baseline and you crave doing junk food, crave eating junk food, and you crave scrolling. In the same vein, all right, this is the crazy part. Your body, right, you've woken up and you've done a cold shower and then it's come down back to baseline like that. This is now your new baseline, okay? Now, when you've removed all of the bad habits, and this here is your baseline, what can your body even get to get back to that level? What can your body do and crave? The good habits. Bosh. So you'll be here and you'll subconsciously want to eat right because it'll get you back to there. And you'll subconsciously want to go to the gym because it'll bring you back to here. Okay, this is quite a simplified way. I'm sure some of these good habits will give you more and some of them will give you less. But just to explain, your body always wants to get back to this line. Okay, and if you cut out all the bad things, This line doesn't ever raise further than where the good habits can take it. Okay, so the first couple of days with the dopamine detox, it'll take a while, it'll take a little bit. The tolerance line will lag behind a bit after you've cut things out. So the first couple of days, do expect it to be a bit restless, because you really want to scroll and your tolerance is already up here, but you've cut it all out. You let it come down, and then look, this line, your brain's going to get addicted to the fat loss habits. Bosh! All right, this is using neuroscience, so this is what will help you say more consistent with your diet. But it doesn't stop there. We've got 4 bloody phases, guys. So the next phase is improve your food quality. All right, this is a big thing that helped for me, and I really just, again, like the dopamine, you just need to start with to understand why. Okay. So why ultra-processed foods work against you? It's the omega-6 to omega-3 imbalance, right? So seed oils, I'm sure you've heard about them being bad, but you don't know why. Why are seed oils bad? Why is there this dogma around them? It's because they are very high in omega-6 and lower in omega-3, which is unhealthy, and it should be balanced, all right? Most modern diets full of ultra-processed foods, they're heavily skewed. They're very high in omega-6, very low in omega-3s. And you're probably like, Finn, why does this even matter? This is just words. Okay, what you need to understand is that imbalance, it creates inflammation, all right? And your body is like, I'm trying to fight off. Look, why inflammation works against fat loss. Because it makes fat loss harder, even when you're eating the same calories. A whole foods-based diet at 2,000 calories versus an ultra-processed foods diet at 2,000 calories, you're going to lose fat easier on the whole foods diet compared to the ultra-processed diet, because your body is not going to be inflamed or as inflamed. Okay? Because what inflammation does is it will increase water retention and bloating. It will slow your recovery and performance. And that is massive. In a fat loss diet, slowing recovery and performance, that's not what you want. Because bad recovery in the gym, bad performance in the gym even, and then slow recovery afterwards, that leads to muscle loss, and it leads to bad performance, and it will lead to a bad cut. You have lower energy and brain fog. When you're slumped in the middle of the afternoon, that isn't necessarily because I need a coffee. It's because you have that low energy and brain fog from inflammation, because at lunch you've had an ultra-processed ready meal, a sausage roll for my US viewers. That's quite an English thing, a sausage roll. But maybe you'll have like a sandwich or a burger at lunch. Okay? And then because of that, because of insulin sensitivity, you have less predictable hunger, because you're inflamed and because you're just hungry because of your insulin. And that means that all of this means that you have worse adherence to your diet. Okay? So ultra-processed foods are high in seed oils, like I mentioned. They're hyper palatable. They're literally made to be as tasty as possible. And you're probably like, oh, of course I want things as tasty as possible. But of course you do, because it makes it dopaminergic. That's why subconsciously you want super tasty things. And yes, you could probably get super tasty things eating whole foods, but the easiest thing to do is to go to the shop and buy the super tasty crisps and the super tasty chocolate bars and the super tasty protein shakes, because they've been made to be dopaminergic and they've been made to be hyper palatable, which makes them dopaminergic, which makes them addictive, which makes you buy them more. You see? Which means it's easy to overeat them. They've got low micronutrient density. Like, you buy a protein shake and you're like, oh my God, it's got 25 grams of protein in it. Sickety-boo. No, 25 grams of protein in a steak. Yes, they both have the same amount of protein. But in a steak, it's got all of these micronutrients as well as just the protein. And you're looking just at the protein, but you're missing the zinc, the creatine, in the steak, and all these other bits which make up how you feel. all right? It's designed to keep you buying, as I just said. So now we understand why ultra-processed foods make it worse for cutting. This is why whole foods can help you. They have a more natural, a balanced omega balance. They obviously have lower inflammation, more food volume per calorie. You can eat way more food in terms of volume for the same amount of calories as you can on an ultra-processed food diet. What's quite funny is obviously I eat whole foods and I can have a massive plate of a bowl of mince and rice, like a Buddha bowl, great, massive bowl. It was quite funny. My housemate was on a diet and he'd like cut a pizza in thirds or a quarter, and he was cutting this frozen pizza up so he could have 1,000 calories of pizza. And he had I was like, what are you doing? You're having basically a big slice of pizza for 1,000 calories. And of course you're hungry afterwards. And because it's ultra-processed foods, it's going to make you more hungry afterwards because it was so dopaminergic and because it was hyper-palatable and because it's made to want more. But then I eat 1,000 calories of whole food and I've made it taste good and I've made it voluminous and it was quick to make. I'm so full and I'm like, I couldn't even imagine eating again. He's like, oh man, I just wanted the whole pizza now. Oh my God. You're just making it harder for yourself. Okay? So you have more stable energy afterwards, and very importantly, you have better gym performance, which means that you can keep muscle better in a fat loss phase. And you can also recover better after the gym because you can eat proper carbs and you can eat the proper fats and the proper proteins. Okay? So we've touched on it briefly about macros, protein, carbs, fats. They're not the full picture. And a lot of times people will not quite understand and just focus on, like I said, getting the protein shake because it has 25 grams of protein. The way I like to explain it is it's like regular versus premium fuel. All right. See, you can put regular fuel in and yeah, you'll run and it'll be fine and it'll work. Or you can put premium fuel in and your engine's just going to run so much smoother. It's going to be more efficient and you're just going to have a more enjoyable time driving it because it works better. Macronutrients are the fuel quantity. So you still have to have the macronutrients, do not get me wrong, but they're the fuel quantity. Micronutrients are how well the engine runs. So let's say you want to become ripped. You think of yourself as a Ferrari. And would you put regular fuel in a Ferrari? No. You'd put the V-Power. You'd put the premium fuel in because you want it to run the best. Stop putting just regular fuel in, acting like you're I don't even know, a Toyota Prius. No, that's a hybrid. A Toyota Yaris. I don't know. A rubbish car. You're not a rubbish car, man. You're a Ferrari. You blooming act like it and put micronutrients in your body so that your engine, your body, runs well. All right? Macronutrients, yes, protein will help recover. So will carbs. But the micronutrients, all the little bits that you think you're missing at the moment, they make you feel better. And in a cut, making yourself feel better is like a hack. I couldn't imagine just focusing on macronutrients. I think you would just have a horrible cut experience. And I don't know how people do it. So I've mentioned already, people justify the ultra-processed protein junk because it fits their macros. Like, oh, I'm just going to have this high protein chocolate bar and this high protein mousse yogurt thing. I always see this little because it fits their macros. And that is the downfall of the fits my macros thing, is that you're missing, by only focusing on the 3 macronutrients, you're missing the countless micronutrients because they determine how that you feel and you function on a day-to-day. And obviously we want this cut to be sustainable, for you to stay consistent, for you to crave the habits. If you're feeling horrible during your cut, of course it's going to be hard to stick to. All right? These whole foods, they make cutting easier because you get more food volume per calorie. Like you can have the massive meals like I was talking about, more fiber and water content, slower digestion, which means you don't feel hungry again straight away because your body's still digesting it, which means, yeah, longer satiety, longer feeling full, all right? Whole foods, they let you eat more food and you feel fuller on fewer calories. Why wouldn't you want that if you want to cut weight? That's why I just don't understand the, oh yeah, eat ultra processed foods. Yeah, eat these rubbish foods, but if it's my macros, you just feel horrible and you feel more hungry. It might work, but what's the point? So this is where we can use my identify, remove, and replace method once again, and it fits here as well. You identify the ultra processed foods that are currently in your diet, right? You read the labels on the back. So you think like, do I know why this ingredient's in there? Something or other phosphate. If you can't even pronounce it, it's likely that it's not even good for you, all right? Because you see on the back of things, especially as you go to the cheaper shops like Lidl, because seed oils make things cheaper and all these like chemicals make things, you can produce them for cheaper, that's why they have them in them. But you look at the back and you see, oh, it's got sunflower oil, it's got something or other, and you don't even like, why is this even in here? A little tip I've got as well is you use the Yucca app. That will tell you why a certain artificial preservative or something that you can't pronounce, basically, the additives, why it's in there and why it's bad, or if it's not as bad, or it'll give you like 3 different levels. I'll give you a green, a red, and an orange. And then you can make a choice as to like, do I still eat it if it's maybe a green or an orange? Even then an orange I wouldn't really eat. If it's green, sometimes things are unpronounceable. It looks bad, but it's just a green. And it's like, okay, maybe I'll eat it. It's like, it's a great app, all right? I would highly, highly, highly recommend it if you want to start understanding what's in your food and why things are bad in your food. You just scan the barcode and that's it. It's like MyFitnessPal, you just scan the barcode. It's a great app. It doesn't highlight seed oils, so make sure you have a look on the back as well, but seed oils are easy to spot. All seed oils are bad. So but some additives are not as bad. So, but yeah, if it says sunflower oil or vegetable oil, bin it off, man. Stop eating seed oils. And then the next thing is remove. Right, my room is absolutely so hot. I'm just going to open my window. Okay, right, yeah, remove. Remove the friction. So you want to remove all of these things that you've identified, the ultra-processed foods. Ultra-processed foods, get them out the house, man. It starts a diet, especially a diet of whole foods, starts in the shop, or starts with a plan for the shop even. Yeah, look, shop with a plan. Remove the seed oils and go to the shop with a plan. A good diet starts in the grocery store. See what I'm saying? If it's in the cupboard, it's in your mouth. It's easy to be like, oh, I've got a packet of crisps in the cupboard. I'm just like, it's fine, I won't eat them. I'm super disciplined. You're just making it hard of yourself. You've got friction in there for no reason. Just throw away the things that are already in your cupboard that you don't want to eat or you know you shouldn't eat. And just don't buy things in the shop because you're like, oh, that looks nice. No, go in with a plan. Maybe get ChatGPT or get a coach to go through with you what you need to buy to eat properly. All right. Yeah. So you go into the shop and you know what you need to get. So once you've removed the ultra processed foods, you're starting to replace, and that shopping with a plan, as we've gone into the replace a little bit. So you replace with whole food defaults. So now you can have protein at every meal, a whole food carb source at every meal, have natural fats. Natural fats are good for you. There's so much dogma around fats. Yes, ultra processed food fats are not great, but natural fats like butter, like cheese, like avocado, like tallow, they're good. They help your hormones. All right? They help you feel full. You can have higher volume vegetables. So you can have a meal and add more vegetables to it. And for only like 50 more calories, you've made it so much bigger. And then what you want to do is have simple, repeatable meals. I've got 3-4 meals that I know that are good macros, that are obviously all whole foods, that are easy to make, that taste good, that are filling. Once you've found the holy trifecta, or what's that, 5-fecta, just spam them, bruv. Like, once you know them and you have to, once you've removed the decision fatigue around food, just start eating the same things. I eat steak and eggs every lunch. I eat the same pre-carb pre-gym carbs. I have 2 bananas, a kiwi, some honey every day, and I have the steak and eggs every lunch with some rice if it's after the training. Anyway, we don't need to go into my full day of eating, and then the dinner is the only thing that I'll change. I'll have 3, 4, 5 different meals that I know how to make and I know are simple. Then before I go to the shop, I just buy them, and then I don't even have to think. I just eat them, and then next thing you know, you're absolutely shredded. Once the food environment is clean, appetite becomes predictable. Right. The summary of this section is that whole foods, they give you better energy, which gives you better training, which gives you better adherence. And that's what we're trying to do in the inside out method. We're trying to help consistency stay easier, adherence stay easier, right? And the other thing is the ultra processed foods. And what you need to understand is that they provide cravings and crashes, and they're just going to make your cut more difficult, okay? Great. Let's now move on to the third section. And this section is going to make so much difference in terms of how much you want to do the good habits. Obviously, the dopamine will, as I've explained, help you feel cravings to do it, cravings to the good habits, because you cut out the bad habits, so the good habits, they start feeling good. And to completely exacerbate, to make it you feel even more driven to take inspired action to doing the good habits, you do identity alignment. So, to explain it, we say, why does change feel hard? All right? Because your current identity tries to keep you where you are. Because change feels uncomfortable and it threatens your identity. If you identify as a fat person and you're like, right, I'm going to lose weight. Your body's like, hey, hang about, our identity is overweight Finn. It's going to, and I had this, it's going to be like, it's going to try and put up resistance. It just wants to keep you the same. It wants to keep status quo. It's called homeostasis. Your old habits, they protect the current you because your brain sees you as overweight, or it saw me as my own brain saw myself as overweight. So doing the good habits, the eating clean, the going to the gym, that doesn't align with my identity of being fat Finn. All right. The version of you now, or the overweight version of you, that will always try and pull you back unless you unless you align your identity with the ideal identity. So, identity before action is where your actions, they follow your identity. Okay? You act in line with who you believe you are, not what you want. It's who you believe that you are. And fat loss, see, it sticks when your behavior matches your identity. You don't rise to your goals. You don't rise to, I want to lose 10 kg. You fall to your identity. If you say I want to lose 10 kg, but you still subconsciously identify as that, when I still identified as that fat Finn, I'd never lose 10 kg because I'd always revert to the bad habits because my brain would try and bring me back to being that identity of fat Finley. Okay? So what you need to do is you need to shift your identity to be the fit version, to be that. You need to shift sorry, I don't know what happened there. You need to shift your identity to be in line with where your end goals are. You need to start thinking like the person that has all the goals. You shift your identity first, and then your habits follow your identity. You don't shift your habits and then you're like, once I start eating right, once I do this, once I'm shredded, I feel like a healthy person. No. You start feeling like a healthy person first, and then you align your habits with that identity, and then it feels like plain sailing because it's like, oh, of course I'm eating healthy. I'm a healthy person. It's like when you quit smoking, it's like, you don't go, I'm quitting smoking after you've been quit for a while. You go, no, I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker. You identify as a healthy person, as the fit version of yourself. And once I started identifying as the fit version of Finn, that is when things started to become intuitive, almost automatic, because your brain seeks out things in its outside environment which validate its internal identity. So what you need to do is you need to do activities, actions which help you align yourself with the ideal identity. And this is what brings us on to journaling. And before you go, how is journaling going to help me lose fat? Yeah, I get it. But you've stuck through the day long enough and you've understood why dopamine is going to let you lose fat, and journaling is going to help you lose fat because it's going to, every morning, help you align yourself with being that fit version of yourself. So what you do in my method, the aligned action method, is you write 4 different things. You start off by writing your identity. You write down I am statements like I am disciplined, I am healthy, I am confident, I am, whatever thing identity you're trying to become, you write it down like you are it right now, okay? Gratitude. Then you write down 3 things that you're grateful for. It grounds you. It's such a high vibration emotion, gratitude. And you write something like, I'm grateful for my eyesight. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for my dad. I'm grateful for the ability to chase my goals. And that brings us on nicely to goals. Then you write your short-term and long-term goals. These end up being the same goals, like each time you write it down until you've achieved them, and then you put more goals in. But that could be like, I'm going to lose 10 kg by this date. Get 6-pack abs by this date. They're more short-term, and the long-term would be live a confident and motivated, fulfilled life. That's a bit more long-term. Maybe you could put by a certain date. Because goals need dates, otherwise you're just saying stuff, okay? In clear direction. Then after you've written those goals and reminded yourself of your goals, you write down today's specific tasks that are going to move the needle towards reaching those goals. And these tasks are going to be aligned with the goals. So let's say it was lose 10 kg of body fat or body weight. Then your brain will be remembering the goals and go, well, okay, well, today I need to hit my calories, stay under my calories. I need to go to the gym. I need to do my steps. I need to do my cardio. And then you're thinking in a way of how you get to this goal, and you're reminded of your goals, and you're doing these tasks each day that you know are going to get you towards your goal. And when you've got clarity about how to get to your goal and doing the little tasks which add up, that creates follow through, and that is what creates consistency. So the next activity, the next action I'm going to recommend that you do is meditation and visualization. Right? Stay with me. I'm sure a few people have dropped off and they're not watching anymore because they're like, bloody hell, how's this going to help me lose fat? And that kind of mindset is why those people are going to stay fat. But you're still here, all right? So stick with me. The meditation and the visualization helps build your identity, all right? So the meditation, it quiets noise. It gets you in the headspace ready for visualization. It's the visualization which is the important part of this, but the meditation first quiets down your brain and gets you in a position ready to visualize. What you do is so simple. You just have to do it regularly. You imagine living a full day as the goal version of you with the ideal physique, with the ideal lifestyle, like waking up, eating healthily, eating your pre-gym stuff, training, looking in the mirror, it's important, and seeing the ideal ripped physique with the ideal abs, with the ideal muscles, with the ideal everything. You're acting with confidence. The important thing about visualization is you feel the feelings and you feel the emotions that you would be feeling in, like, if you were there in the moment. Do you understand? Because the important thing, the enlightening thing to understand is that your brain doesn't know the difference between an actual memory of an event or a heavily visualized rendition of an event. It doesn't know the differences in its brain, and it doesn't know the difference. So if you if you visualize, it subconsciously seeps into your identity, into your subconscious brain, that this is just you. You are that version of yourself, the one that wakes up, eats, trains, looks in the mirror, acts confident, blah, 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 blah. And that slowly seeps into your actions because your brain, as well as doing the journaling, you're visualizing as well, your brain just starts to suddenly identify as this fit version of yourself. And you start feeling cravings to do the good habits. It starts feeling intuitive. Your brain, I've just said that, it doesn't distinguish versus real versus vividly imagined. The repetition, it wires it into the subconscious, like I said, and the subconscious, that's what drives the daily decisions. That what gets you to do things on autopilot, all right? It's not magic, it's not woo-woo, it just makes the right actions feel more natural, okay? And it's like, I say it again, if you're gonna be doing the fat loss actions, the fat loss habits, the gym, the training, the eating right, the cardio, the steps, why not make it easier for yourself and feel like less of an uphill battle, and even get to the point where you're craving the good habits, where you're addicted to the good habits, where you're not fighting against an identity that doesn't believe this is possible, that's trying to fight you. What changes over time after doing this is healthier choices, they feel automatic. Because you have less internal resistance of, oh, this isn't my identity, I'm fat thin. No, you're fit thin. And you're just fit thin with a bit of extra fat on you. So you have that less internal resistance. And because of how much less resistance you have better consistency. How are you going to fall off when fit thin would never fall off? You're acting from fit thins, or fit yourself. You're acting from me. No, you're acting from fit whatever you are. Okay, so which means you have less self-sabotage and you don't fall off, and you're more consistent. And that's what we want from this method. It's the consistency that helps your building. You start acting like the version of you that you want to be before you become them, and then your outside reality shifts to meet who you identify yourself as. Identity alignment leads to aligned actions, which then leads to easier consistency. And then that is exactly what we want. So you notice how these three phases have helped us build the consistency, okay? And I could have started this whole thing by being like, oh mate, all you got to do is be in a calorie deficit, get your cardio in. It's easy. It's the hard bit of a deficit is the consistency. It's doing it every day. Because if it was literally just the sake of knowing what a calorie deficit was, I'm sure I would have got in shape much quicker. You would probably not be watching this video. But it's not, it's consistency. So that's why phase 4, the final phase, is then applying the deficit. Once you've understood phases 1 to 3, we then apply the deficit, okay? We calculate our BMR, calculate our maintenance calories, which finds maintenance. Then we apply a 500 to 700 calorie deficit, depending on how aggressive we want to go, okay? We'll probably start with 500, okay? And then that will give you your daily intake target. For example, let's say your height is 5'10", you weigh 90 kg, 198 pounds, you're 28 years old, and you train 4 or 5 times a week, and you get your 10K steps in. That would lead you, after using a BMR calculator, just look one up on the internet, super easy, that'll give you a maintenance of 2,800 calories. So in theory, if we ate that amount of calories, we wouldn't gain weight and we wouldn't lose weight. We'd be hitting maintenance. So from there, we put a 500 calorie deficit in, and that would take us to 2,300. So if we eat that amount, we're going to be losing weight because we're eating less than our body. We're burning more than we're eating less than our body burns, so we're burning more. Yeah, blooming out. Absolute brain fart, but yeah. So the macros for a cut, right? We have our protein, 1 gram per pound of body weight. And that's like, don't go below that. Like you could maybe on the odd day go slightly below that, but it's so important to keep your protein up on a cut. And I'll explain in a second why. Fat, pretty like the standard recommendation is 25%. It's hard to say, put a cookie cutter advice on fat, because fat is what helps your hormones, helps your energy, helps your satiety. But if we do want to give a cookie cutter advice, like I can't give it for all of you here, I'd give it 25%. Okay, you can maybe be 30 to 40 or 20, depending on different circumstances, and then the carbohydrates make up the remainder. Okay, and that's the way it's written there makes it sound like carbohydrates are an afterthought. Carbohydrates are so important for your recovery, for your performance in the gym, for all these things, and for your glycogen. It just happens that they will fit into your calories in that way, okay? So you want to cluster your carbs around training, pre-workout energy, make sure you have carbs beforehand. That's why I said earlier I had a banana and a kiwi and some honey before the gym. And you want to have them post-workout. That's why I'll have rice after the gym as well as my steak and eggs, but only on the days that I go to the gym. So I can have that post-workout glycogen replenishment, all right? Gives you a better performance in a deficit and you look fuller and less flat. You don't have that stringy, like flat, like almost like you starved yourself look. All right, you don't want that, and that is how carbs will help, okay? So also daily movement, make sure you get your steps in, 10K steps baseline. That's just gonna burn calories on easy mode. It's non-stressful calorie burn. It increases your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is basically just burning your calories throughout the day, not doing exercise, okay? Once you've got your steps nailed, then you can maybe focus on low intensity cardio, but steps, focus on that first before you start killing yourself with loads of cardio, all right? But what's important, which I see a lot of people make the mistake, if they're trying to lose fat and they just go for a run or they keep going sprinting or going on lots of long runs, that is not the most efficient long-term solution for burning calories in a deficit. What you want to be doing is low intensity zone 2 cardio. And as fat loss slows, you want to be adding this. And what the activity which I would recommend is just do incline power walking on the treadmill for 30 minutes. And you can start maybe by adding like 2 or 3 times a week doing this. And if you feel like you need more, adding it step by step and seeing how it goes, and seeing how it affects your weight loss or your energy or your other metrics, okay? And what it'll do is it will burn fat without taxing recovery. Okay, because you can say running, yes, running will give you, if you're in zone 3 or 4, more calories burnt per minute, but that's going to lead to, because you're zone 3 or 4 and because it's running, it's high impact, more taxing on the body, on the central nervous system, on the recovery, on your leg recovery. So if you're, it's going to impact your gym performance. We're not here to get better at running. We're here to get fat loss and to keep our gym progress as much as we can. So that's why low intensity cardio in zone 2 will be your best friend. Okay. What protects you from losing muscle in a deficit? As I mentioned earlier, it's a high protein intake. If you're eating like 0.5 grams per pound of body weight, you're going to start looking stringy and flat and you're going to lose muscle. But you make sure, it's so important that you eat a gram per pound of body weight. Okay, and saying it on paper sounds like, okay, I get it. But it's until you actually really do it, you understand that, wow, I've got to eat a lot of protein at each meal. And you do. And you have to be really focused on your eating and eating enough protein each meal to stay under your calories, but hitting your protein. All right. So that's why protein is important, and sufficient training intensity. You've got to work out and not like in as much intensity and close enough to failure that your body goes, oh, okay, I'm going to keep this muscle. If I start going to a cut and then change my whole training routine up and then go, I've heard people go like, oh, surely in a cut you do lighter weight and more reps to tone the muscle. No, you train the exact same. Keep the intensity up. Make sure you're training to failure. Obviously, if you start feeling super fatigued because you're in a deficit, then you can adjust based on your body. But as a general recommendation, sufficient training intensity is so important, and you don't want to be changing up your routine as soon as you start cutting. You don't want to be taking it easy because you're in a deficit. No. Otherwise, your muscles, your brain, your body is going to go, oh, well, I don't actually need this muscle, and I'm in a deficit, and I'm in a calorie deficit, and I need energy, and it's not going to go to the fat, it's going to go to the muscle because it's like, well, it's not needed. I'm not training hard. Train hard. Train hard, eat high protein. It's as simple as that. Your body keeps what it's forced to use. So this is why I've left it to the end, is the specifics of a calorie deficit is not the hard part. See, that took me like 5 minutes to explain when the rest of it took me so much longer, because it's the consistency is the hard part. Staying consistent with a calorie deficit, with a diet long enough is the hard part. That's why phases 1 to 3, the fixed dopamine, improve your food quality, the density alignment, so important for actually getting you to reach your goal weight, your goal body fat. If it was just about the calories, most people wouldn't struggle. You wouldn't be watching this video if all it took to lose weight was just eating a calorie deficit, bro. You wouldn't. And that's why I found it so helpful to use these hacks to help staying consistent feel easier, you feel cravings towards it to feel more natural. All right, I've found all of these through trial and error. I just want to help you guys because I want to help people out using it because it makes it so much easier for me to shred down, to lose fat, to stay consistent, not only with habits that lead to fat loss, that lead to gym improvement, but in general life. Okay, like doing work, being sat at your work desk is going to feel easier. You're going to stay focused. You're not going to want to be scrolling on your phone. You're not going to want to be doing this. General conversations day to day, socializing, that gives you dopamine. And instead of your brain going, oh, I can get so much more dopamine in this conversation by scrolling, no, you're not, because you cut that out. So now the conversations are going to feel so exciting and rewarding, and your just general life is going to feel so much better. You could not even be depressed. You could just be a low dopamine baseline, which is making you feel meh and lethargic and just rubbish. But I'm so passionate about helping people with these dopamine stuff because it's helped me so much in my life. Okay, so the loop that you get is that you fix the dopamine, you improve the food quality, you align your identity, then you apply the deficit, and you keep doing this, and it leads to consistency finally stops feeling like a constant battle. And I know, I've been there, I've tried the cuts, like I said earlier, I've tried the cuts where you just white knuckle it, where it's, I'll just go on a calorie deficit. I try the basic advice. I do the protein, and then I don't really look at carbs and fats because like, it's just protein, everyone knows protein and calories. And then you end up falling off, and then you end up looking stringy and like finding it really hard to stick to. But that's why the inside out loop and method makes it easier. Why fight yourself if you're gonna have to do these habits anyway, if you want to get to the fat loss, when you can do these habits which add minimal effort to your day, and it just makes consistency so much easier, and it means that you're 10 times more likely to actually reach that end goal instead of getting to the point where it feels hard and then being like, and then falling off. I've done it. I know you've probably done it. It works, this method, because your behavioral state follows your brain state. All right, your food quality affects energy and cravings. Your identity drives your daily decisions. And then you get to the point where the deficit only works if you can actually sustain it. I've said this so many times, but if the information around what a calorie deficit was the reason you weren't losing fat, then all you have to do is just stay in deficit. But it's not that easy, is it? It's the staying consistent, and that's why the fixing your behavior, following your brain state, your dopamine, fixing your food quality, so your energy and your cravings feel good, so you can sustain it, so you can sustain this and you feel good in the deficit. The identity drives your daily decisions, and you feel driven to do these things and take inspired action instead of forcing yourself to do these actions and forcing discipline. Don't get me wrong, it's not effortless. It doesn't make it effortless. It does not like a magic pill. It's not like it makes it so you don't have to put any effort in. Please don't get me wrong, but I'm of the thinking that you're going to be doing these habits anyway. Why not make it so much easier for yourself by making yourself have cravings towards them, making yourself want to do these good habits, making yourself feel rewarded when you're doing these good habits, make your general day-to-day life feel better anyway, and feel better with energy and cravings through whole foods, through identity alignment, through dopamine. And then you can apply the deficit and get your macros going right and your micros going right. And then you will reach your goal weight whilst it being enjoyable, whilst it being so much easier. Fat loss is not hard to understand. It's just hard to stay consistent enough without the right systems. And then apply this to you. All right? This is a framework. This is a generalized framework which you can take and you can try and apply to you. The framework works. I've used it over many times. I know it works, but its execution is where most people struggle because it's a lot. There's 4 phases and it's a lot. And at this point, you're welcome. You are welcome to take this information, to save this video, to go through the phases, to try and you can align it to your own and try it on yourself. You're welcome. Or you can go the other route and make sure that you're way more likely to hit your goals by letting me help you. I want to help people in using my method and making sure that they reach their goals. I can give you the personalized calorie targets and the macros. I can give you a training program that's adjusted to your lifestyle. If you're busy with work, if you're busy with kids, I can give you a food quality audit so you don't have to guess and use the app. I can tell you that this food's not so great and you can replace it with this food. All right? I can I can help you understand the dopamine and the habit alignments. All right? I can explain on one-to-one calls how you can fix your dopamine, and it's very specific to you. Like, you can tell me your day and I'll tell you what you need to cut out, how to do it, and we can go through and we can have weekly accountability with it, and I can help you with adjustments, and I can essentially give you a custom inside out plan built the whole way around you. And I think I'm able to help you get such a good transformation and make sure that you're sticking to it. And I'd love to help you out. It's for you if you've tried cutting before and you've rebounded. If you were like me and you tried the methods and you just can't stay consistent because you're white knuckling it on willpower and you struggle with the consistency, like, it's not the knowledge, it's not that you don't know what a calorie deficit is, it's you struggle with the consistency with staying with it, and it feeling like an uphill battle, and it's just so hard to stay with it, and then you fall off. I was there, and I know that I can help you, because I know that if you're in that position as well, you want the fat loss, but you don't want to be white knuckling with willpower, with discipline, with, like, you're going to need it. Of course, it's going to be hard, but you want it to be that slight bit easier. And it's for you if you're ready to commit, man. If you're not here to be like half in, half out. You're ready. You want the fat loss. You want the abs. You want to be able to take your shirt off in the summer and feel confident. You don't want to be wearing a shirt in the pool. I've been there. I've been that guy. All right. The next steps, if that feels like you and you're like, yes, I'm ready to make a change, Finn, click the link in the description. I've got a short type form in there. Just fill it out. Put your like bits of information in there, and then I'll have a read and see if you're a good fit for the program and if I can actually help you out. Because I just want to help. I just want to help you out, my man. But if that's not, and you want to go through it on your own, that's completely fine. All right? But that was the inside out method. And that is how using the phases can help you stay consistent towards your goals and lead you to getting the fat loss that you desire so badly. It's all consistency and making the consistency feel easier and making your brain crave the consistency so that you can then apply the deficit and get shredded. Thank you for watching. Lots of love.